So let's talk about how we use those parameters we just learned about to create what are called material instances of our materials. And what is a material instance and why would we want to use it? Well, I have two spheres here to set up to just kind of show the example of why and when we might want to use a material instance. I have this blue sphere and this red one. And all that the really difference is that in the previous video, if you've been following along, we made a material that had parameters. So we had right clicked, converted to a parameter, and this allowed us to name these values and change them as we saw fit. The other material that I created here is just a basic standard material with two constants, and these are not set up to be editable. These are fixed values as the shader assumes, and that's about it. So let's look at what a material instance is and how the parameters fit into that. Well, if I take my materials parameter 01 in the content drawer and I right click, towards the top you should find an option called create material instance. As soon as I click on that, Unreal is going to ask us, hey, it makes a new asset and tries to give it a name. Let's just leave this to what it is for now and just left click so we can accept that. And what we now have created is what looks like a duplicate of our original material. You'll notice the original material, if you look very carefully up where the name is there, in parentheses it'll say material. And this one, material parameters 01 instance, is now a material instance. And so let's actually drag out, I'm going to Control C, Control V, and we're going to duplicate our parameterized sphere here. And I'm going to drag on this instance we just made. So again, you don't notice a difference. The only thing that's changing is the material panel is what's changed down there. And now if we double click to open the material instance, we notice a very different window for the first time. We've been used to the material editor with all the nodes and everything else. And now we're just seeing what looks almost like an asset preview. We're seeing a preview of the window and we have some information over here in a details panel. And what we have available to us are the exposed or created parameters that we made in our master material or the parent material. And I can come in here now and change, let's say, this to pink and the roughness to 0.1. And what that allows us to do is, if I just pull this to the side, you can see not only do I have the ability to update it in real time, but I now have the original material that was created with all of its instructions. And really, the cost of this material instance is relatively small because we're reusing all of the data from our parent material and we're just copying it over and changing just a few of the values exposed inside of that material instance. And so we could come back in here and we could take our master material. That's what we'll refer to it as. Is basically, if you hear master material, it refers to kind of as the parent-child relationship. Let's make another one. Let's name this one Inso 1 versus 2. And then again, let's copy the sphere here. And let's apply this one. And the thing we're going to do now this time is open it up. And you'll see it has the default parent color again and roughness. And I'm going to change its color. And I'm going to leave the roughness the same. Now, the one thing you're going to notice is that if I made changes, like let's say that this green sphere, I never changed the roughness value. If I were to come back into the parent, though, and open it up, if I changed its value to 0.1, notice how this one inherits the change made to the parent. Whereas if I make it, let's say 0.9, it inherits. But this material instance that we had, the pink one, we overwrote the parameter for roughness. So now it is inherently its own type. And this allows us to create one type of material and then use it in a lot of different places and only change the things we need to. So again, just to kind of drive that home, if I take my original material here, the master material, and let's say we plug in a constant 1 to the metallic, convert to parameter by right-clicking. I'm going to type this metallic. What you'll notice now is that if I set this to 1 and apply, all three of my spheres are now metallic, even though the first two are very rough. If I set this down to something lower, it should look more metallic. So this one, the pink sphere, if we go to it, you can see we haven't overwritten that. So this is a really great way to have a bunch of materials that inherit from each other. This also helps us to not repeat code and logic and having to build the same graph multiple times. And it also can help with performance and other things under the hood because of the instancing of the data and code. So hopefully this shows you a little bit of how that works. The last thing I want to talk about is what happens if you don't expose any parameters. So we had this original sphere here, and I'm just going to close this. And let's look at this material we created called no parameters. So if I open that up, just remember that we had just constants in here. We never right-clicked and converted them. And if I go ahead and make a child or a material instance of this, so again, I'm going to find that material. I'm going to right-click and go to Create Material Instance. Let that be asset created. If I click and drag this and put it on the sphere, it's now using that instance material. And if I open that up, you'll see, again, in that details panel, unlike on the material instances with exposed parameters, I have no parameters exposed. So I have no way of controlling or making changes to this material instance. So I just wanted to make you aware of that this details panel will change dynamically based on the number of parameters you have exposed. So hopefully that'll give you a high-level idea of what material instances are, how we use them to drive children. In those children materials, we can decide to either overwrite or continue using the values, the parameters exposed. And we do that by turning these checkboxes on and off. So anything with a checkbox is an override. So hopefully that makes some sense, and let's see you guys in the next one.